All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Nancy Van Dal, Chairperson of the NCAC Bylaws Subcommittee, and I'm calling the meeting to order at 9:01 and certifying a quorum. All of our members are present, and we have guest Gary Billingsley, our illustrious secretary. So thank you all. Welcome, Michael.
Hi.
So has everybody had a chance to look at the agenda? So I could share it, but I don't know if it's worth going through that. Well, let me share it. Actually do that. Okay, so I have found that when I go in and try to follow this link that's in here, when it's a PDF version, it says page not found. When I do it from my Word version, I can get to it. So I don't really understand why converting it to a PDF doesn't allow me to copy and paste this link. But Gary, since you're here, I think in the future, I'd really appreciate it if instead of just putting an agenda on the meeting folder or on the website under the event, that we put the meeting folder link, and then people can get to all the documents.
Oh, okay.
That would be great. And then the agenda is always in there as we make updates. If I need to change the agenda or add something to the meeting folder, then people can look at that too.
Yeah, the only reason we were going directly to the document is because there are some non-computer savvy people, I think, that might get in there and go, well, now where do I find the agenda?
Oh, because of our naming standards, you mean?
Yeah, probably so, if they're not used to it. So, but
Okay.
it is, I mean, you know, whatever we want to, whatever works for you best.
Yeah, I think we have a limited number of people that attend our meetings, and if anyone has some issues with it, they can contact us. Or you could put both links, put the agenda and the meeting documents. I don't know what's easier. Or you can train me and I can do it. So either, I hate to add more work to you guys. Okay, so we'll start with our conflict of interest declarations, approval of the minutes from our last meeting 5 weeks ago, my report, and then go into our policies and procedures action plan and meeting and action item summary, and then public comment. Gary, since it's a small group, please feel free to just comment as you wish. And then adjourn. So I understand, Michael, you have to leave by 11, or do you actually, is that when your appointment is and you have to leave earlier?
I will leave at 11:15.
Okay. All right. And so we'll get done what we can. And then I guess you'll just review the video to get anything further.
Yeah, I'll do the minutes, of course.
Okay. Conflict of interest. I have none.
Michael Beachley, I have no conflicts.
Susan Schauberg, no conflicts.
Wyatt Angelo, no conflicts.
You're muted, Tom, or I can't hear you. I don't see a mute, but I'm not hearing you. I think you're saying no conflicts. Okay. We'll wait for you to get your set up.
It's the thumb.
Right. I will interpret for you. Okay, so my report, I wanted to go through some of these dates that are coming up. The STR CAPS meeting, of course, already happened. Hopefully some of you attended that. It was a presentation from Sarah she was getting input from people as well on the short-term rental caps. And I believe the decision that came out of that meeting was to defer any decision for this year. And I'm not sure that, Gary, do you remember if it actually had a time frame on when we would revisit that, if it would be next spring, or if it's going to be waiting until after this community plan is done?
I don't think we ever came up with a definitive date.
Yeah, so at least for now, it's going to be deferred for a number of good reasons, and that seemed to be a very popular decision.
The date was not real soon. Did you hear that? Okay.
Thank you. I did. You fixed it. Welcome, Tom.
Okay.
our next meeting will be October 12th, regular membership meeting. And then another important meeting is going to be the FEMA regulations meeting, where Sarah's going to go through some new requirements coming out of the federal government on FEMA that can affect all of us. And certainly her. She's been scrambling a lot to try to figure out the implications of these requirements that are coming out with a very short timeline and time frame. So I encourage all of you to attend that meeting on October 16th. So it's going to be mainly an informational meeting.
Yeah,
and then
so there, give you a quick synopsis. There are 3 options: bad, horrible, and unbelievably tragic.
Thank you, Tom. Yes.
Okay.
That is correct. So, and
On
could
that
have some
uplifting
implications
note.
on our group as well. But yes, there are, and tied with some of these other state regulations on land use and that kind of thing. She's dealing with a lot of balls in the air that will affect all of us as well. And I misspoke. The meeting on Saturday, October 12th is our regular membership meeting that's every 2 months. So going into my report, I'm going to get out of this. We're planning just a very short, brief statement saying that basically our subcommittee is working on policies and procedures. And if anyone is interested in joining us, feel free. We've got another couple of positions, et cetera. Oh, welcome, Mark. I can see you now.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be fairly short. Do any of you have anything that you would like to make sure we cover in the meeting? Because there's a lot to cover, so I thought we could make ours pretty short. Okay. I also wanted to mention that in the meeting, there was a recommendation to look at partnering with the NCA, the Ac+on Community Association, and actually form almost a formal partnership. And that could definitely affect the policies and procedures. I don't think there's anything in the bylaws that would prohibit it, but we should very carefully figure out how that would be done. And there could be other organizations that we might want to have some kind of a partnership role with. And partnership is probably the wrong name, but I offered and am almost done, Mark, with similar information that comes out of another organization I've worked with that's gone into this in quite a bit of detail about how you set up those kinds of relationships with other organizations and how you decide and how you manage that. So I was going to send that to the officers, and I'll also send it to you guys. So it's almost done. I'm trying to take all the information from that particular organization out of it so that it can be used a little better. But it's I think that it'll be helpful.
Nancy, can I just comment real quick
yes,
on
please.
that? So that what Nancy's talking about is really a good idea for the NCAC to partner with the NCA on some grant opportunities, and so it's a good thing. But when it came up, I mean, I always try and look at things not for that incident, but a broader view of that. And so we didn't really have any. While we think it's a good idea, I could see in the future that other organizations may want to come to us for things. And so I think it makes sense for us to look at it and maybe move forward in some instances, but having some policies around that will really be helpful. As I anticipate we'll have more organizations coming to the NCAC for things, whether it's a grant or we had some folks come to us and want time on our agenda to talk about a ballot measure that's coming up. And so we respectfully declined that after the executive committee conversation, and I wrote that to that organization. But what I'm seeing is that more things are coming to us and wanting us to do this or to do that or be involved here or be involved there. And so So some guidance from policies and procedures would be really helpful going forward.
And thank you for bringing up that last point. I was going to mention that as well. And I hope that was okay with the people that were wanting to come, and Sarah and everybody, but it is
Yeah.
something that I think we need to add to our list
Yeah.
of items. Tom, is exactly that. You know, when do we allow people to come in and talk about, or do we at all ever let people come in and talk about ballot measures without getting both sides? Do we take a position? Do we, you know, is it, I think in this case, it was just to get information out, but
Yeah.
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 So,
again, it's a good cause. It was
mhm.
ballot measure around communication for emergency services in the county. So it's a worthwhile cause, but you know, when I sent the message to the organization that we were going to respectfully decline their request, I talked about sort of the mission of the NCAC, which is to recommend to the county on things. And so I'm not sure they were really happy. It was a short response, but it was polite. And at any rate, I just think that, you know, whoever, you know, the leadership of the NCAC going forward will be well served by some good policies and procedures on where to go when these things come up. So,
right. So thank you. And on the other one with partnering with the NCA, that was actually in buying some equipment that will allow, you know, the duplication of what Sarah brings to the meetings that allow hybrid meetings to be able to occur. So that same Zoom equipment, and I haven't seen it personally, but it looks like it's fairly elaborate, and that they could provide a lot of the funding. They actually have a grant, and they would like us to manage it, is kind of my impression of what they were proposing, Ren was proposing. So anyway, so the board meetings, I think, have proven to be quite helpful in being able to get some of these things discussed before they go into the general meetings, or I guess we're not calling them that anymore, the membership meetings, regular membership meetings. So any questions on any of that? Or Gary or Mark, did you have anything else to say about the board meeting?
no, just from my perspective, it's really helpful to have those conversations. We had that good conversation about that, you know, the ballot measure request and presentation of the ballot measure, and that was really helpful. And so I think they've been working well.
Nancy, I've got a question for Mark.
Yeah.
You obviously handled one of these through the executive committee, one of these requests.
Yeah.
With respect to grants and things like that, where we partner with somebody,
Yeah.
are you looking for that to be an executive committee decision or a membership decision?
You know, that's a really good question, Wyatt. I guess what I would see is that it would be a conversation from the executive committee first. I don't know, and then a recommendation to the membership.
Okay.
That's what I think, you know, that's what I think would be good. You know, we made that decision on that ballot measure as an executive committee, and I'm going to mention that in my executive board report when we meet on the 12th to the membership. But as many things as we can have filtered through the membership or go to the membership is the best. That's the best way. So.
Yeah, and in this case, it was too urgent. The executive board had to make the decision because they needed to be able to come to this particular meeting, and so that's why there was a discussion and a vote and a decision on how to respond, because otherwise they would have to have been on the agenda. In cases where we don't have to, I think, you know, we could make a recommendation. So good question to stick on the list. I assume you're taking notes through all this, Tom? No.
No.
Michael's taking notes on the minutes,
I'm
but I mean, they're topics.
Yeah,
the topics for the,
the thing that it concerns me about that whole process is any formal organization to organization ties that we have will have to be approved by the county.
Right.
Okay. Yeah,
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't make that decision. The county makes that
Right.
decision.
yeah, okay.
Right. And I think that would be part of the policies and procedures. So
I
when I
would-
said make a note, I think just having the topic,
Will do.
that's all. Because I keep
Okay.
forgetting to put that on the list. Okay, so that's basically my report, except I want to add just kind of a personal note. I've been having some medical issues, and I think you all know about my broken arm, and I'm using that as an excuse, but I've just recently, like within the last week, been able to start typing. And I'm going to use that as my main excuse for I have not done all of my assigned duties of typing stuff up. So I will be getting on that. But I want to just appreciate so much all of you doing all of your action items and sending them to Tom and copying me. It's been really great. And I will be following up in the next couple of weeks as I go on a trip and host my sister when she comes to visit, but I will get mine done now that I can. I mean, I still have kind of this limp thing here, but at least I can marginally type. And I tell you, I tried dictation. I tried typing with one. I've been typing with one hand over the last 3 months, and that is not easy. Neither one works well. So that's my excuse, and I'm sticking with it. So I appreciate your patience on that, and I will be working on that over the next couple of weeks and getting my part done. So moving on to our main item of the policies and procedures. Has everybody had a chance to look at Tom's latest version that's in the meeting packet? And Gary and Mark, are you able to get into that? Because I can, the agenda, I was saying before the meeting, the link on the PDF doesn't seem to work, but I can put a link in the chat to it. Let's chat.
I don't see your link
I
here.
haven't put it in yet.
Okay. I want to make sure that what I'm editing is the same thing as your.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to have you share.
Sometimes I
Yeah.
make revisions and don't post them because they're not done yet.
Oh,
So I want to
okay.
make sure.
So why don't
Let's
we,
see.
I just took the last one that you had from a few days ago, so you might have actually updated it from there.
Okay.
Let me go in and look.
Okay. That's the one I got. Oh.
Okay, good. So Tom,
So I
why don't,
successfully didn't do any more work on it.
okay, good. So what we have is to talk about the format, and this is going to be Tom's document, and he and I talked a little bit yesterday. I think the format will evolve, but in terms of doing the actual work on writing the different parts of it, we were thinking we would go ahead and kind of follow the bylaws articles in terms of writing parts of it. It just makes more sense because they're all related. But then Tom is going to come up with a logical format, and Michael sent out something this morning. Did you send it to all of us, Michael?
Yes, I did.
Great. So of an example document that he has of some policies and procedures that look pretty good too. So thank you for that, Michael. And Tom, do you want to go ahead and share and talk about what we have in the current document? And then I owe you guys the proposed additions from the July and August interviews. But we can talk about the proposed additions from Susan Wyatt and Michael.
Okay. I need to do a couple of things to it as I'll go ahead and share my screen, but.
Oh, and while you're doing that, minutes. So I forgot all about minutes. So we need to approve. Did all of you have a chance to look at Michael's minutes from our last meeting 4 weeks ago.
Yep.
Mhm.
And did anyone have any changes, additions?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none, the minutes from the meeting 4 weeks ago are approved as presented. Thank you, Michael, very much.
Wasn't very long. You made it easy.
No. That did make it easier. Still means listening to me, the meeting and everything. Appreciate it very much.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, I did, the last work I did was a couple of weeks ago. I got Susan's inputs, and just basically copied and pasted, same thing with Wyatt. Not quite sure how to apply them. Some of these things I think were certainly comments, but I believe we already decided to do that. I didn't verify that. So I'm going to make my excuse is that I have been working on the community plan. And if you think that the process of doing bylaws was chaotic,
Oh, it was
Friends-
totally organized by Tom.
Yeah.
night and day. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I did capture those. There are others that I've gotten more recently that I need to capture. One major thing I did was add references to what this applies to. They won't always have references. I think that's okay, but I'm not certain. That's one thing we need to decide. Is this a proper expansion of the bylaws, or can there be something else in the bylaws, in the policy and procedures, which is not even mentioned in the bylaws? That's kind of a
I-
philosophic
I
question.
think so.
I think so too. I think so. I think as long as, we discuss them all, I can definitely see some things that we wouldn't necessarily see in the bylaws.
Yeah, what Mark Everett was talking about, like working with the NCA and grants, and that's not in our bylaws, so that would be it's something
Yeah.
different that we would do.
And
Nancy, I
then
have
there
a
may be
question.
things that are important enough that we would go back and add them to the bylaws, but in most cases, I think we could just have them in the PNP. I'm sorry, Wyatt.
Yeah, is this a proper time to talk about format?
Yes.
I owe this to Tom, some sleepless time last night. One of his thoughts early in this process about policies and procedures and formatting and structure. And we're kind of wrestling with that, I think, right now, as we look at all the stuff that we've kind of vomited into the record here. One of the things that struck me, and this is, I confess, part of the curse of being in federal practice at one point, but the literal interpretation of policy and procedure. And it seems to me that one of the things in our format we probably should think about doing is separating the two and really discuss policies or creating a separate section of our policies, which are guiding principles. And I looking back at what we did with bylaws, there were a number of guiding principles that we're going to be essentially trying to flesh out in our procedures. And it seems to me a clear statement of our policies, quote unquote, at the beginning of our policies and procedures is probably not a bad idea.
That's kind of what I thought we did.
I don't think we got that far though, Tom. And unfortunately, your thought just triggered a lot of stuff, or fortunately, in how I look at possibly the format, because it seems to me that I just sat down this morning and fleshed out about 5 different policies that we have been using as a guideline for all of our drafting that I think need to be stated, even though they're kind of incorporated into our thoughts and not only the bylaws, but also the procedures that we are looking at adopting.
Oh, I
Are
didn't
you
mean
thinking
that
like
we'd
some of,
I didn't mean that we'd executed them, but we had divided them into policies and procedures.
Okay,
So, we don't have necessarily all of the policies in place written down, but we do have them separated. I'm trying to make sure that I understand that we have a mutual understanding. The structure is there, the content's not.
so I'm
yeah,
wondering, Wyatt, if you're talking about like the letter you put together that we modified slightly, but that we put when we were presenting the bylaws, where you talked about a bunch of our kind of our basics on how we were going about thinking about this.
exactly. And also there's some additional stuff that just came to, and the reason it came to mind was I was looking at our references to the honor system, which seems to be a thread that weaves itself throughout all of our discussions on procedures. And so that seems to me to be a policy that we really kind of want to separate out and emphasize as a standalone, along with transparency, inclusivity, respect for divergent views, those kinds of things that really ought to be stated clearly up front as we then flesh out the procedures.
I'm wondering if we should call it like guiding principles and even have it as a third section, like guiding principles. I mean, maybe it'll follow as a policy kind of a thing, because I do think it has value that we just had as kind of an introduction. It's not in the bylaws, but yeah, that was a really valuable document. I think that it would be good to capture.
So I think it's already covered, so I'm open to alternate interpretations of what we need.
So I think what
It's because it's
What's
no
talking
different.
about is general principles that
Yes, general principle, conflict of interest, general principle of the implementation of the NCAC open, those are all principles. Some may be more important or more sweeping than others, but they're all principles. The one which you could argue was not perhaps the map, but that's also a principle.
I have to admit that I have trouble differentiating between policies and principles. It appears that, or procedures, excuse me, but it appears that when we talk about a particular procedure, underlying that is a set of principles or a policy that is articulated by the procedure itself.
I agree.
And so maybe it is a fruitless attempt to try to separate them out because it may not be quite that simple. As long as they are, I understand the value and the thinking about tying them to particular bylaw articles, yes. But to try to separate them out, I think that there's a fuzzy zone between what constitutes a policy and what constitutes a procedure. And that's often why policies and procedures are live documents that change perhaps even from one meeting to the next meeting. The document that I sent to you this morning, and I apologize for not sending it earlier. We've been out of town for a couple of weeks, but we deal with that document every time we meet as an organization, and sometimes there are changes every single time. So it's almost like a running tally that we have to go back to and reorganize and make sense out of, and so on and so forth. I'm just expressing, some not confusion, but a little difficulty in trying to sort this out in a nice, neat little fashion.
Well, nothing is neat. Let me address that. So the value of having policies, different procedures, is the policies. If some situation arises, like with the ballot request for the ballot information slot, you can look at the policies and say, well, is this consistent with our policies? And it's a little harder to tease that out of a procedure which implies policies. If you
That's a
only
good
imply
point, Tom.
policies, then you don't have it's not as useful a tool.
Yeah.
This is a tool.
Yeah, it's
This
right.
helps us make decisions.
Well, as I was
So-
listening to Mark, trying to make a decision on the fly
Yeah.
about whether or not to allow folks to come in, and I don't mean to be speaking for you, Mark, but his mind went back to whatever discussions we may have had in the past, plus the bylaws, and come up with the decision of equity and neutrality and the responsibility that we have to the county and so on and so forth, that we probably should not be getting into political arguments. That's really not our mission and our place to do so. But we are an organization of everybody in this village. And if outside folks want to speak, you see what I'm saying? I mean, he's going through this process of trying to say, do we do this or do we not do this? And what principles do we have in hand that allow me to make this decision? And I'm not sure we can do all of that stuff up front. That's the problem. So often they're going to be on the fly anyway. Is that fair, Mark?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, when I fielded the request from them, I sort of went into the principal mode, and I mentioned this at the executive committee that when you're a principal, everybody wants to come into your school and access your students for different reasons, whether it's for a book sale or a parent club or all these different things. And so you have to filter through that down to what do we do as an organization, and we educate students, and that's our primary mission. And so, this other stuff with people wanting to access them for different things, you have to have some sort of filter. And to be honest, the conversation at the executive board was really great. There were only four of us that night, but we talked about it and we all came to an agreement on it. Of that, which is what we did. And but yes, it's you're right on, Michael, in everything that you said there. I would just add that in school districts as a board of directors, they have sort of what I think Wyatt was talking about. We have policies, and then we have administrative rules. And they're captured in the same document. So you'll read a policy on whatever it is, and then they'll have the administrative rules under that policy, which talk about how those things actually are done, more decision points. And so you guys are talking about the same thing, kind of, in everything you do here.
Well, one of the things that I really appreciate about Tom is the manner in which his mind organizes the cosmos. It makes sense, and it's something that can be passed on to others. That give the following person a sense of order and organization, and that's really, really valuable. But the other thing is about policies and procedures is that these are things that we are going to be dealing with normally on a regular basis.
Right.
Because they're always going to come up. And so there's this two-track system going on. And the one track is, what can we decide now that gives us a guidance on making decisions and determining actions in the future? And the second one is, okay, what's happening today? And how do we respond to that? And what does that have to do back with the body of rules and regulations that we live by? So, that there's this two thing going on, and that I don't think we can get over that. I think that's an ongoing thing.
So going back to the format, I do think it's something that can evolve as well.
Yeah.
So I do like Wyatt's idea of putting in some guiding principles. But I think there's also a place for policies and then the procedures under the policies. And the question is, would we have them completely separate areas like they are currently? And then Tom has these cool things where you can flip from one to another with a link. But, or do we put in policies and then procedures under each policy, have it organized that way? And I think it's something we can probably decide later on that. But, you know, Robert's rules doesn't talk about policies and procedures. What they talk about is standing rules.
Yeah.
And they don't break them out, basically. And so it's kind of interesting, Mark, when you mentioned your school district has policies and then they have rules. And it's kind of like, it sounds like the rules might be more like standing rules. Michael, the document you sent, which it sounds like I really shouldn't share on something that's going to be uploaded.
You can share.
No,
I mean, yeah.
Well, this will be, not that there's going to be a lot of people watching. It is going to be, you know, publicly available. So I can share it to Mark and to Gary, or you can send it to them, but I'm not going to share the screen because right now you've got, you know, it's a different organization's document, but they don't break out policies versus procedures, right? It's all one document with just a list of categories with rules in them, but it's not really broken out. It's more like standing rules, right?
Yep. And incidentally, that document is 30 some years in development.
Right. It's very impressive. I mean, I looked at it briefly, but it's very impressive. So, Mark, would you be able to share that document that you're talking about? I assume it's a public document.
Yeah, it is a public document. To be honest, you could go to any school district in Oregon, and if you go to the school district site, and usually they'll have at the top board, and then they'll have policies. And they're all public. Everybody's are public, and so you can do that. Yeah.
Okay. So I think, you know, Wyatt, I'm thinking we should take that letter that you developed that we put in front of the bylaws and take some of those, excerpt it. Would you be willing to do that and transform that into principles, guiding principles, and then we can talk about whether we want to include that or whether it sounds like it's part of policies. We can have a discussion about whether the group feels like there's value to it.
Okay.
Personally, I like it. I really liked the document when you did it, and I think it helped explain why we came up with the things, how we came up with the things, and so. But as I'm thinking back on it, it guided us as we were going through the process, and it would probably be helpful to note. I'm just not quite sure how it fit in, and it sounds like Tom might be having the same issue from what you're saying, Tom.
Yeah, let me give it a shot, Nancy, and I'll try to get it out sometime in the next couple of days.
Okay, thank you. So in terms of format, I think, yeah, the map is under policy. I guess we stuck it here because we felt like it could change, and so it didn't belong in the bylaws.
Well, yeah, that and the none of the bylaws had maps and things in them.
Yeah.
It is a policy in terms of where we think we belong, where we think we have a say.
Okay.
It could be roughly construed as a procedure since it's already stated in the bylaws that it's the watershed. So that's, to me, that's the only one that's marginal in the policies.
Okay, on where it, yeah, it's really a good map,
where it
and the description is terrific. It has to be somewhere.
It has to be somewhere, and it could be a procedure, could be in a policy. Yeah, like someone has just said, it's not easy.
Yeah. So
But,
I don't know if we want to start. I think it's going to shake out as we do it.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be something where we're going to see things with policies, with specific procedures under the policies, and whether it makes sense to have them in two completely different sections of the document or have them together with a heading of policy. To me, a policy is overarching and the procedures define the policy. That's how I'm interpreting it. Is that how the rest of you are interpreting it? Okay.
I think that's kind of what I say up here.
Okay.
and get it a little bit more, a little easier on the eyes.
Yeah, it doesn't really separate which is which.
Okay.
So
I'll add-
the
I'll do
overall
that.
thing is in there. So,
Okay.
so at this point, yeah, that's good. And then Wyatt's going to send you some information on our guiding principles, which could be a separate, even a separate little introductory section.
Okay.
We can add that to talk about next time.
Now, several of you threw out example policies, and I didn't capture them. I started to, but then you kept going on. Would you indulge me and reiterate some of the policies that you can think of?
That we were talking about today.
Yes.
So one would be handling requests for people to come and speak. That would be a general one.
We will. Now you're going to watch me badly type.
You're doing better than I've been doing the last two.
That's a low bar, though, right?
I did very low bar. I tell you, I know
Just
I've
go
been
by what you
whining about
said.
this thing, but
another
and then
one is,
political requests.
Another one is our relationship with other organizations.
Right.
I'm going to have to take off. I also want you to know that I will miss the next 3 meetings. Not this group, but all of them. I'll try to log into that Wednesday night evening for the executive group. But my wife's brother passed, and we're loaded down with all kinds of stuff that goes along with that. And so
I'm sorry, Michael.
Traveling down to California, and yeah, and I'm sure you all understand that. But I'll be thinking about you, and I'll tune in as soon as I can.
So it sounds like we probably need to have somebody else do the minutes for this meeting then.
Well, no, I can do that. That's not a problem. Because,
are you sure?
Yeah, sure. I can do that on my own time. It's just that I won't be available for meetings themselves. I can see what my calendar looks like, and it's pretty rabid. That's all. I'm just letting you know.
Okay. So when you say the next 3 meetings, you're not saying the next 3 bylaws subcommittee
No.
meetings?
In fact,
Okay.
just the next bylaw. I'm talking about the executive group and the FEMA group.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the membership meeting?
That's
on the 12th.
That's okay. That's okay. That's a good one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you.
So take care, Michael, and
Bye.
sympathies. Okay, we still have a quorum. So I think you got the relationship with other organizations.
Political statements, positions.
Right. So I think that was all that we talked about this morning.
Okay. Good. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for indulging me.
No problem. I kind of caught you red-handed there. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so do you want to go through some of the rest of it? And I don't think we're going to be making any real decisions here. It's kind of we're just kind of looking at what we've brought in. And Tom, if you need more elaboration on different things, say some things that you would like elaborated on. What we were just asking at this point was to review the feedback sessions and note any topics that came up that we should be covering in the policies and procedures, not actually to write the policies and procedures. And then once we had all that, we were going to go forward and assign or people can volunteer to write, in pairs, write up the suggested drafts of the policies and procedurs. So
They'll be
this
assigned to
point,
volunteer.
Got something that probably got missed from the interview with the secretary. For policy 3, we need to add something regarding records retention policy. So part of the duties of the secretary is maintaining the website. The Google Docs right now, the Google Drive, we're up to 70% storage on our current allotment. And so we'll need some guidance. The secretary will need some guidance on how long certain records can be kept and which ones can be deleted eventually from the website. And I'm sure probably some of that may be dictated by the county requirements. I don't know the specifics of what those are, but without.
Yeah, we'll need to check with Sarah on that, because I think the impression I've had is that we have to keep everything forever. But that might be unreasonable, or it would go to the county site maybe for storage at some point. Like we're probably filling up most of that, Gary, with all of our bylaws documents, right?
A large portion of that is the storage of old videos before they were uploaded to YouTube. And so possibly some of that could be taken care of by taking those and uploading them to YouTube. I haven't looked into the technical details of getting that done. Those files occupy quite a bit of the storage space. But even with that, and I'm not sure what the growth rate currently is on the website. It's probably not that big, but at some point in the future, somebody's going to be dealing with, well, hey, either we upgrade our Google Drive to allow more storage, or something's going to have to be moved or deleted or taken offline. Maybe it's stored somewhere else and it's not on the website, but how does that happen? We don't know.
Right. Yeah, good question. Thank you. So one of the things that came up when we were doing the bylaws on the secretary duties and document storage in particular was that we're supposed to be having off some storage of everything that's on a computer drive somewhere that's not online as a backup. And I don't think, Jeff said they haven't been doing that. So that would be something we as a committee felt like it was important to do that, because there are ways.
That gets into the point of, okay, whose hardware is that going to be on? Is that going to be on some, some member's drive somewhere physically? And then that brings up some issues of, well, that person's not available, or when they leave the membership, do they pass the hard drive on to somebody else? It'd be nice if it was on a drive that belonged to the county.
Right.
We had an interface to it through the internet where we can upload things that need to be long-term archived and gotten off of our Google Drive.
Right. I think that sounds like a really good solution, and something that could be put in the policies and procedures. So thank you for bringing that up.
It could be an
and anything
item.
else you discover as you go through, please let us know. That's on my to-do list, is to wrap up what we had talked about in August with the secretary and communications responsibilities. Tom?
I was just going to say, it sounds like if Sarah attends your executive committees, that would be a good thing to do. Although, as I was saying that, I got thinking, she's so busy, I doubt that we're going to get much response.
I would point out that the county probably has a retention policy which binds us anyway.
Yeah.
Right. And we can go in and look at that, but I've had the impression when we were doing the bylaws that we have to keep everything. And it didn't seem like there was any kind of a time thing. So it is a good thing to ask her. This is a great topic to talk to her about again, is really I think having all of our videos with our meetings is helpful. Like, we're going back now and looking at the feedback sessions to get things for the policies and procedures. But 2 years from now, are we going to care about that? We have the final document that's approved. Do we need to have every iteration? What did we have, Tom? 23 or something iterations of the bylaws, and then all the presentations and all the, I think most of the storage is probably from our efforts on all that, and most of all those videos. So yeah, but she's impressed on us that if there's ever, we'll have to ask her. It may even be on their site, but I don't know. Do you remember hearing anything about that, Mark?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you remember hearing anything from Sarah about records retention?
No.
How long we have to keep anything?
No, but I just, from my experience in school districts and in schools, Wyatt's probably right on with the county will have requirements about that, and
Right.
I'm sure that that's the case, and I think, finding a way to do that, it could be an expense eventually for us
Mhm.
to have to build that into our budget. So
I just looked up on Tillamook County, the clerk's office, and the first paragraph says records dating from 1850 to the present may be searched at our office during
Yeah.
regular office
Right.
hours.
I think those are title records, Susan, which is different than administrative.
Yeah, I'm drilling down. That was the first thing that I opened up.
Oh, that is kind of the impression I've actually had, is that we have, yeah. So a good thing. Thank you, Gary, for that input. And anything else that you've kind of learned as you've been taking over that you'd like included? I'll send you a draft too of what I write up from our interview with you, because now you're more familiar
Okay.
with stuff.
That was the main thing. Jeff and I kind of talked about it here recently. He said, "Hey, there's something that we forgot to mention about that's starting to come up," and that happened because he actually handed me some physical records back when the NCAC used to meet in person.
Ah,
These a bunch of binders of different material I didn't really go through, but then he said, we're starting to get close to 70% on our Google Drive, and I don't know how fast it's filling, but we need to either update the storage requirements or start offlining something somewhere.
Mhm.
yeah. Yeah. And I know the Zoom also has a limit on how much video you can keep, but I guess so when you're right now, when you take the Zoom videos, you put them on the Google Drive then, as well as sending them to YouTube.
No, no, because if that happened, we really would run out of room really fast, because those videos consume quite a bit of storage. That was the whole idea behind uploading the videos to Zoom, because it was the one place that, or to YouTube, because it's the one place that we felt like we had more storage space available.
Do we
Unfortunately,
have a
that,
limit on that?
I'm not sure. I don't know what our current account on YouTube allows us. I'll need to look at that. It doesn't, when you log in, it doesn't, it's not one of the highlights that come up the way it is on Google Drive, where it's right there all the time. Hey, this is how much you've used.
Okay.
yeah, the problem with it is that it is a commercial enterprise, and they can change their policies at any time. And we really have no choice. So they could say, well, anything older than a year goes away. I mean, arbitrarily. They wouldn't probably do that, but they could.
Mhm.
Or unless you pay the premium, it will.
Right.
So that's why I put down, is YouTube storage good enough? I don't know.
Right. And in the bylaws, we do say that everything needs to have some kind of an offline storage as well. And then we left it for policies and procedures on how that's to be done, because it is a big issue. And do you
Yeah.
hand the hard drives to somebody, or do you have multiple, like an annual, flash drive or something like that you hand off each? I mean, it seems a little, and media can change, right? The technology can change. So
Yeah.
I like the idea of having everything done at the county level. They should know how to store things properly.
Yeah, the I read a stat that unaccessed flash drives will probably last about 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's not a forever thing.
Hmm.
It's not paper.
Right. So that'll be a good topic for that. Yeah. I did forget to mention too in the report about the executive board meeting, that and it's showing up in some of the emails and that kind of thing, that we're still looking for more people to be on these I think the communications task force is getting fairly robust now. You're still looking for an email person, Gary?
Well, Candace has kind of stepped up to help handle that. The most recent email that came out was from her. So
Okay. Okay. She did a nice job, I thought. And then Susan, you are currently the lone person, I think, on the outreach task force. I know you were going to try to talk to some people. Have you had any luck finding people?
I have not really had a chance to do that, to be honest with you. We've been more focused on bear education in the village.
Okay. Oh,
Hmm.
okay.
Yeah,
Which is
Okay.
a
not
lot
ju-
of outreach in itself.
Okay. Well, if you find some people, just please communicate that to Mark, and because it'd be good to get started on some of that, and you
Mhm.
shouldn't have to do it by yourself by any means, but
So if you
I
have any
appreciate your
materials,
stepping up.
if you have any materials on bear education, South Beach Road needs it.
Oh, I can definitely send some that I got from ODFW, some really good reference materials that are well written from them.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll email them to you separately. We've been passing them around as well.
Okay, that'd be good.
Yeah.
We need to have them printed out and left in the STRs.
Yeah,
Is
no,
it-
absolutely. They're PDF files, so you can do that.
Excellent.
Okay. And I guess something like that would be something that could be put under policies and procedures for how you communicate out that kind of information,
Yeah.
Susan, as you guys develop your task force, when you get more people to help you.
Mhm.
So how would we phrase that as a topic? Communication?
I guess specifics from outreach task force, because they would have to work with the communications task force.
Yeah, is that a policy
would
or
think.
procedure? Kind of both, I guess.
My guess is that we're going to see this collapse, and have a
Yeah.
policy with procedures under it. But who knows? We'll find out as we go along.
Well, it's easier to act if you're looking for policies. It's easier to access. If you're looking for procedures, then you can go to that. So
Okay. All right. So at this point, do you see any point in actually going through the input that we've gotten so far? Or should we defer that and have a chance to look at it after Tom flushes it out?
I
Should we?
think I have some work to do, and
Okay.
I'll probably capture what I've got so far as revision 8 with changes in it, and
Okay.
then I'll do it change accept, and then add things that I get subsequent to what you've seen on the screen.
Okay. Appreciate that. And then I'll get you my stuff over the next week, hopefully. That I can type, and I think that sounds good. And then at our next meeting, we can go through that more extended document, see what else we need to cover, and then why don't we plan on doing volunteer assignments on actually writing out some of this, have it organized by topic, and Tom, maybe you and I could talk before the next meeting, like Monday or Tuesday of that week, to talk about how to organize the document in terms of doing writing assignments.
Okay.
Does that sound fair? Because I think
Yep.
we had talked about having those linked somewhat to the articles, but we don't necessarily need this document to be linked to the bylaws articles. Just to
Well, I'll be doing that as you know, they are linked.
Okay.
I've got those references.
Okay, great. Does that work out time-wise for everybody, or particularly Tom? Is that going to work out time-wise for you to have that, or are we going to, should we just
I will either have too much to
defer
do or
that?
not enough to do for the community plan,
Uh,
and I don't know which.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll just kind of play it by ear. The nice thing about this is that we're not under the same tight time constraints, as this is a living document. What I was hoping is that by the December meeting, we could have some of this ready to take to the NCAC for approval, and obviously take it to the board meeting ahead of time for their review and approval before we take it to the NCAC, but to get parts of it at least approved. And the more urgent things is going to be for the election, because we're going to have to get a nominating committee formed. Well, sorry, outreach task force is already there. We don't have to do that, but the election will be in April this year, so the slate of officers needs to be out by the February meeting, I believe. So for the December meeting, we should probably have the rules out there on how to do that.
Yeah, we can, when we get to the point where we think we need to publish, I can go ahead and publish or create a subset of things that we're comfortable with.
Perfect.
And that's trivial. So
Yeah.
we can do that. And so
Perfect.
let's just fill this thing out as much as we can and then do sort of a cherry pick what's cooked.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And then maybe at each meeting subsequently, we can have a time on the agenda to do further review and approval of more policies and procedures, or we wait till April. I feel like we've done the really critical stuff with the bylaws, which is great, but I think this is going to be, while it's a living document, and as Michael says, it'll change on a regular basis, it's the first time it's been created. So I think getting the organization of it right to the beginning it's worth this time that we're taking.
I'm wondering how much work we're creating for the other CACs.
Oh.
Tom.
I don't know. Maybe they'll just copy it. I haven't heard that they're carrying it all. Have you heard, Mark? You're the one who attends the other meetings with the other chairs.
I do think so. We didn't meet earlier this month in Pacific City and the Woods area have new leadership, I understand, and so maybe they got the date wrong, but I do think that I think people have been made aware of the bylaws work done here, and I do think I would guess that they're going to look at it, and that Sarah's going to hold that up as a good example to others, and so I do think maybe other places are gonna feel like they're gonna have to do some work.
Okay. Yeah, I think when I look at most of them, they're on there as draft forms from 2006. So yeah. Okay. So I'm not going to worry too much about that, though. They can they at least have a template they can start with if they want to. Great. All right. So I think for our meeting and action items, we just continue with this. Tom has his reorganization. I have my list of things to do. Sarah, did you do your second set of?
I have to do my second set, which is the final meeting, and I'm partway through it. But
okay, thank you.
Long 2.5-hour meeting.
It is. It was.
Chipping away at it.
Yeah, thank you. And Wyatt, you did yours plus some more, so thank you.
Yeah, I finished mine.
Yep. Thank you. And Michael finished his. So did Michael send everybody his stuff?
I got something from Michael. I didn't see what it was.
Okay. He sent something out yesterday that was the document I had sent you with his job description for parliamentarian, but then also had something on meeting feedback session 1.
I don't recall getting that myself.
Okay. We can forward that, or it'll be in Tom's document. And then this morning, he sent out, I think, to everybody this example policies and procedures from another group he belongs to.
Okay.
Okay. Public comment. So Mark and Gary, any thoughts?
No, nothing to add.
No, nothing for me.
Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time to join us. I please don't feel like you need to, but your input is extremely valuable. So thank you. That will give you plenty of opportunity as we get closer in this thing to be able to comment on things as well. Because you can see we're flailing a bit, but we're making progress, I think. So. All right, I think I don't see any point in continuing. I'm going to be leaving for the coast here shortly, so this is kind of nice for me to be able to end a little early. Any other thoughts, comments from the committee or anybody?
Bring your rain gear.
It's a wet one out here today.
Yeah, well, I'm actually leaving the heat of, it's been like over 100 here in the Bay Area, which is extremely unusual for October, and going to Bodega Bay, which is in the 60s and 70s, so, and sunny,
Oh, nice.
supposedly. So I wish I could be in Nesquin with the rain, but yeah, but
Yeah.
I'll be at a different beach. All right, you guys take care. Meeting adjourned at 10:06, and I'm going to stop recording.